What is masculinity or what is manhood? Growing up, me having gynecomastia, I struggled a lot, kind of like fitting in with other groups of boys. I was never really competitive. I was very shy, nervous, timid, right? Especially around girls. I felt like, I couldn't really fit in with a lot of other like friends at the time, especially with like sports and whatnot. I didn't play any type of sports growing up. I did soccer, but I wasn't really into it. I did t-ball, but I wasn't really into it. I did swim, but I wasn't really into it. And so it's like I could like when it came to physical things, like aspects that like it's kind of expected of young boys to participate in. I didn't participate in any of those things, at least not on a consistent enough basis. I was told man up countless of times, which I feel like maybe messed up my idea of manhood because in any moment of weakness, I was kind of told to man up. Anytime I showed any type of emotion or would cry or whatever the case may be, I was told to man up. I was pretty emotional, I would say. I felt like I did feel a lot more maybe, or I was more prone to reacting to my emotions instead of taking a step back and just like looking over at the situation. And at the same time, I thought it was stupid to try and suppress your emotions. I thought it was dumb to try and go and purposefully have your emotions and suppress them. At least that's what I thought. At least that's how I thought of it. I thought of it as if you're supposed to suppress your emotions and things like that. Oh, men don't cry, blah blah blah. We don't use our like we have emotions for a reason, and we're supposed to conquer them. We're supposed to be rational about them, and instead of acting on them, we're supposed to kind of reflect on them and see why, and lead back to the actual cause as to why we may feel a certain way in any given situation. At the same time, around the same age, I was also falling into like the quote unquote like toxic masculinity thing, like the trap of it, of like where I allowed the internet to kind of misconceive what masculinity truly is, and then labeling the term toxic masculinity, which like doesn't exist because you never hear anything about toxic femininity, right? You hear toxic masculinity all the time, everywhere, but you don't hear anything about toxic masculinity. So there's no such thing as toxic masculinity or femininity at that in that case, because what's masculine is positive, right? And what's feminine is positive, and those two things need each other in order to coincide. There is no bad or good side about it. There's the people, there's the individuals who make things bad, and then there's the individuals who make things good, right? I did know, I always knew, of course, like you will always intuitively know that you will want better for your life. But depending on what stage of your life you're in, what type of mindset you're in, who you are at the time, you won't go towards those things. You won't work towards those things, even though you know what you should be doing or you have to be doing. Namely, one thing is physical fitness. I was flabby, fat, chubby as a kid, and I knew I wanted to like get fit. I knew I wanted to like look like these superheroes I would see on television or on in movies, but I just didn't. I wasn't willing to work hard for that, and that's another way that masculinity could have formed in my mind to be like this physically fit, strong looking male, whilst also having all these great qualities. Seeing that growing up, watching TV and movies, that's gonna tend to be the ideal in your mind. When it came to I'd say the sexual aspect of manhood, or even just things with women in general, I was always like shy and nervous, like I said, around girls like all the time, especially girls that I liked. I'd be like self-deprecating sometimes, making jokes about myself in order to get a laugh or whatever the case may be. But I never had enough of the balls or the confidence to really go up to a girl and say like, hey, I like you, or hey, I think you're cute, blah, 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 whatever the case may be. And the times when I did, I wasn't either like, I wasn't being bold enough, or I was just like, it just led to failure, right? But failure leads to success. But that what happened is that I wasn't able to take those failures and I wasn't able to process them well, and it just made me feel a lot more inadequate, right? And another thing that made me feel inadequate was when my friends were kind of making certain advancements when it came to their own sexuality. Like maybe they got a girlfriend, maybe they had sex, maybe they got another girlfriend and they had sex with her, whatever the case may be. I would feel inferior in a way. I would feel like less of a man, because my contemporaries, my friends, they've had sexual encounters before, I even had any, right? And that's a horrible way to go about it, because you kind of have to think of like, okay, sure, your friends are they're visiting Pound Town every now and then, but who are they with, right? Who is that they're with? Are they actually in a relationship? Are things stable? Are they just gonna break up with this person like 3 months from now, or whatever the case may be? Um, it's like how is the connectivity in that relationship for you guys to already be having sex? And then what's gonna happen months later, right? A lot of the times, most of my friends who have already had sex, those things have not lasted for them. They're not in any long lasting relationship. They might be in a current relationship, but who knows? Who knows what's gonna happen? Who knows what's gonna happen? But especially with sex, right? That's such an important thing when it comes to how we view ourselves as men. That's like, oh my gosh, especially in the West at least. It's just crazy how much we attach our ability to, sexual opportunity to what is masculine or what is manly, right? Like in other countries, they don't even think about this. This doesn't even cross their mind, and they're probably some of like the most masculine men in the world. But we're so focused on how much tail we can chase, how much women we can go and seduce and get into bed, and that's somehow supposed to represent our manhood, right? But at the same time, these same men, right, even maybe yourself, right, the consequence of having sex as a child, a lifelong commitment to another human being that you are raising, that you are growing with another person. And in the West, we have removed that consequence so much so that, when that happens, when that child comes into the earth, or when that woman is pregnant, or when she decides to have that baby, we want to remove ourselves from that responsibility and forego the role of being a father. Is that masculine? Is that what a man should do? Like that's it's actually crazy that, like, for one, we conflate sexual dominance with being masculine, with being a man, but it's like, what, I can't remember what's the statistics, like 40%. There's like 40% of children now growing up, or maybe even 60, growing up in like Western countries without a father, or within a single parent household. But like, oh, raw, we're masculine, I have sex with a bunch of women. That's just messed up. That's messed up. That's very messed up. And I had to kind of make these revelations on my own. And I mean, there was a point in time where I kind of thought this too, like, oh, we're just men. We just want to have sex all the time, right? That's just a thing, right? But I don't think so. I don't think so, especially when you wake up in a spiritual sense. It's not really the case. That's not really the case. A lot of these thoughts, a lot of these goals, goals, I would say, even a lot of these views that I had about masculinity, a lot of it came from the internet, right? And the internet is like so many different sources coming together. No one can agree on one thing. Everything is different. Everything's proving something wrong. Something's being proven right, whatever the case may be, right? And we can't rely on the internet. If you have a strong masculine role model in your life, like a father, or maybe your coach, or a good teacher, or your uncle, or maybe even an older sibling, right, an older brother, go ahead and ask them, like, what do you think it is to be a man, right? But don't take their entire word for it, right? Because they could have been taught those things by someone else who had the wrong idea. But go for, like, what you feel is going to be best, what you feel is right. Because in my mind, when it came to at least the sexuality aspect, I never really got why I should be trying to sleep with a bunch of women, or how does that prove my worth as a man if I haven't, put my key in a bunch of lock holes, or whatever the case may be. I feel like another thing when it came to masculinity was not spending enough time with my father. Um, just over the past couple of years, I'd say, 3, 4 years, I feel like I'm really now getting to know him, especially since I'm on this journey to bettering myself just as a man in general. Just being able to spend a lot more time with him, have a lot of these conversations with him. Every time we talk, every time we open our mouths and speak to each other, it's always something great. It's always a great time I have with my father, especially if we're sitting at the dinner table or breakfast, especially during Ramadan when we would eat together. Just incredibly productive conversations that like I really enjoy and love. And I felt like, it was a foolish thing of me to allow the internet, to misconstrue and to persuade what I think a man is when I've had a man, a proper male role model in my life the entire time, right? Who I was unconsciously when I think about it, unconsciously following and unconsciously taking advice from, but now I'm actually going to that source of masculine energy and deriving knowledge from that. Um, just me on this journey has kind of just like led me back to my father, right? Which is like the best thing to do. If you have a dad in your life who's hardworking, he's disciplined, he takes care of you guys, he tries to push you and everything like that, right? Then go to him for advice right now. I know some of my viewers probably don't have a father in your life. And I mentioned this in my video before about The Way of the Superior Man by David Data. I made a video about that book that I just recently finished. And he talks about finding some type of masculine role model, right? And maybe, again, like I said, you don't have a father, but you could find it in books, right? Maybe David Data's book on the Superior Man is probably a good recommendation. You can read on people who are philosophers, like ancient Greek and Roman philosophers, who just were people who constantly wanted to change their worldview and better themselves and better the people around them. Back to the initial question, what is masculinity, or at least what are the traits of a man, right? And I feel like those traits, I wrote them down, so I'm gonna read them out. Being strong, focused, hardworking, kind-hearted, caring, driven, goal-oriented, determined, supporter, builds up others and pushes others, which is the competitive spirit, and has control over emotions and is a rational thinker, right? So the part where it came to pushing others or being competitive, that is, some people believe that's almost a trait of toxic masculinity, of being over competitive. I feel like there is nothing that can be seen as over competitive. I mean, if you have friends and you guys know there's things you want to achieve in life and you want to keep pushing them towards a much better path, then it's best to keep pushing them on and on and on. When they get to their edge, when they're at their maximum capacity and they're even going further beyond that, which is going to allow for much better growth. Now, there is burnout, there's things like that, but in terms of when you're able to push someone else and that person can push you, it's almost as if the results are limitless, right? It's almost as if your energy is limitless and you can always keep going because you're going against someone else who you are in a camaraderie with, and you both can grow together, right? If you really have that masculine spirit, that mindset, you are going to be willing to push yourself, just by your own self, and then be able to push others who are along the same path as you, and those people can push yourself. And some people over conflate that with being over competitive or whatever the case may be, right? I'll put that in air quotes, over competitive. But I feel like it's just, as long as you love what you're doing and another person loves what they're doing, and they want absolutely nothing but success for you, and it's vice versa, that's reciprocating, then there's no such thing as being overly competitive or whatever the case may be. When it comes to being a supporter or building up others, it is definitely a trait of masculine to raise a family, to go to work and provide the resources for that family to survive and thrive, such as clothes, just something simple as clothes on their back, food to eat, a roof over their head, and then building up others, right? They're passing down the knowledge and the skills and the abilities that they've gotten it within their lifetime to their children or to other people who need that guidance. And that tends to be a very masculine trait, because it's just something in order to give what it is that you have, to take that leading position, and then to give away all that information that you've been able to gather, over time within your whole lifetime, and to break it down in simple ways, and to almost as if like give birth to, I wouldn't say give birth, but plant a seed, because we can't give birth as men. We can plant a seed that can be given birth later on, or to sprout life later on in other people, right? Or in other aspects of life, right? To build up, not to just build up people, but to build up other just things within our life, whether that be a business, whether that be YouTube, creative passions or hobbies, music, whatever the case may be. And with that, you have to be goal oriented, which I mentioned earlier, very determined, focused on your own passions and your goals in your life, because that's what's going to lead to true success. That's what's going to lead to fulfillment. I feel like within the masculine spirit, right? We might think like, I just want to be old and I want to be laying around every day and I want to have enough money to make sure I live a, what do they call it? A comfortable life, or whatever the case may be. But that's going to take work still. And if you want more out of your life, you're going to always want to be working towards something, right? When people retire, they literally like end up dying sooner because they don't have anything to work towards anymore, right? So it's like, if you're really truly within the masculine spirit, I feel like you're going to always want to be working towards something, right? And to kind of go over what toxic masculinity is, honestly, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me. And then it's the fact that, again, like no one says anything about toxic femininity. So I feel like, just again, those things don't exist. There's no such thing as either one of them. But it's just about how you take those certain traits, and are you misinterpreting them as an individual, or are you doing the right things? Are you following the right role models? Are you following the right action plans and stuff like that? Really make sure you dive into your true masculine core. I know it's mostly males that watch my channel, and try and see for yourself what is expected of you as a man and what isn't, right? And see if those things go along with who you are as a person. Because we might not always have to be in that masculine spirit, or whatever the case may be, right? But we'll have some of those traits, right? Just inherently, because we are males. But that's about all I have to say. Thank you for watching. Check out my other videos. See you guys in the next one. Peace out.